If you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, and if they can't stop you, then you become something else entirely. Which is? Legend, Mr. Wayne.
Let's revisit the catchiest phrase in all of Batman. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. Batman Begins sets up a dichotomy between who you are underneath and what you do. Now, ultimately, I think that this is a false dichotomy. I think that who you are underneath and what you do are inextricably linked. But for the sake of this video, I'll take this quote to mean something like, what you do is more important or more significant than who you think you are underneath. Personally, if I had to choose between defining myself by what I do and who I think I am underneath, I would say it's the latter, that I am who I am underneath. This is because I'm a Christian, and along with the Apostle Paul, I say this: I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up for me. This is a given or gifted identity. So in a very real sense, it's not what I do that defines me, it's who I am underneath. It may seem odd to claim an identity that is given, but just look at the way we think of identity in our daily lives. Somebody might say, I'm an American, I'm male, I'm female, I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm rich, I'm poor, I'm athletic, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm a mom, I'm a dad. You are all of these various things. But when it really comes down to it, you ask, what defines me? The reality is that in a way, everyone is given an identity in some way by their culture. My eyes were opened to this through a sermon that Tim Keller gave. He said, every culture applies this invisible force that you might not even be aware of, that shows you which of these aspects of your identity should be held as primary, which of them you should accept, and which of them you should reject. He argues that in traditional culture, your identity comes through your roles and your relationship and your duty, and this brings honor or shame to the group, and this is where you get your sense of identity and purpose and significance. In contrast, there's the individualist Western expressionist cultures. In these cultures, somebody's identity comes from this core feeling that they're supposed to identify and actualize. It's an intuition inside that is expressed, and out comes your authentic self. To illustrate this point, Keller gives what I think is a pretty powerful thought experiment. He says, imagine an Anglo-Saxon warrior, like in Viking times, and he's doing a little bit of soul-searching, and inside of himself he finds the desire just to crush people. He's just a violent, aggressive person. But he also finds inside himself same-sex attraction. So this guy, trying to figure out who he is, looks around and says, ah, the violence, the strength, the aggression, that's me. Why? Because I'm in a warrior culture. Now, take that same guy and put him into modern-day New York, and he's walking down the street doing a little bit of soul-searching, and he sees inside himself violence, anger, aggression, just the desire to crush people. And inside himself he sees same-sex attraction, and his culture tells him it's not the angry, violent, aggressive guy, it's the same-sex attracted guy that is his core identity. So your culture exerts an invisible force on you that tells you which of these identities is your core. So how do we apply all this to what's going on with Batman Begins? Somebody from a traditional culture might say, Bruce Wayne, he's the heir to a great fortune. He leads this company and he's a beacon in his city for success. He's the heir to a noble legacy of powerful and good men. That's who he is. But Batman Begins shows us that he rejects that, and you can see this in a scene in which he gets into an argument with Alfred.
We need to send these people away now.
Those are Bruce Wayne's guests out there, sir. You have a name to maintain.
I don't care about my name.
It's not just your name, sir. It's your father's name. And it's all that's left of him. Don't destroy it.
Batman rejects his family name as the core of his identity. And someone from an individualistic culture might say, yes, it's not your family that defines you. Your path isn't carved out for you. You need to search inside yourself and figure out who you are. But if Bruce looks inside himself, he sees anger and grief and sorrow and shame. And these things, if he embraces them, he might become a vengeance monster, running around taking revenge for the pain he's experienced his whole life.
It can't be personal, or you're just a vigilante.
Seeking out self-gratification. He needs to achieve something more. Batman Begins offers an alternative to the traditional identity as well as the individualistic identity. It says,
if you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, then you become something else entirely.
Which is?
Legend, Mr. Wayne.
Batman rejects some of his family name and also rejects some of his inner desires in order to cling on to some higher ideal, to devote himself to an idea of a symbol of justice in his city. To be somebody who actually does something, who has the will to act. So what you do ends up defining you. In their traditional culture, your individuality is subsumed into the group identity. You're crushed and kind of just diffused within this culture. In the individualistic society, you're crushed by the weight of achievement. You have to figure out your purpose in life. You have to achieve it. And you're continually fighting to prove that you are worth something. Both of these cultural frameworks, as well as the narrative of Batman Begins, hinge on the idea that you need to do or achieve something in order to be acceptable. But there's at least another way to look at identity, a grace-based identity, an identity that is gifted not from your culture or your achievements, but is gifted from God. This is the Christian identity that says, I have been crucified with Christ, or my citizenship is in heaven, or I have been born again. You are accepted. In this way, when you fail to achieve something, you're not crushed. And when you do achieve something, you're not puffed up, because your identity is not wrapped around what you do. Neither your bad deeds nor your good deeds actually define you. You are defined by your relationship with God. This is what we are underneath. Citizens of heaven, people who have been redeemed in Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And this is the interaction of faith, film, and philosophy. Thanks for watching, and until next time, grace and peace, my friends.